Snow blankets the Ardennes forest. Tall pines bend under the weight. Narrow roads cut through white terrain marked by tank tracks and abandoned vehicles. Smoke drifts between trees. The distant sound of artillery rolls without rhythm. A convoy moves slowly through the snow. Headquarters vehicles stop near a cluster of tents and trucks. Soldiers jump down, stamping their feet, pulling collars higher. Inside a command tent, maps cover a long table. Pins and greased pencil lines crowd the surface. Lamps swing slightly as the wind presses against the canvas. Omar Bradley stands at the table. His coat is button high. His helmet rests beside the maps. He studies the lines in silence. Red arrows push west. Blue markers pull back unevenly. An officer steps in. "Sir," reports from the north. Bradley doesn't look up. "Read them." The Germans broke through near Losheim. Armor and infantry moving fast. Our units are falling back. Bradley nods once. Another officer enters. Communications are unstable. Some divisions are cut off. Bradley straightens. He places both hands on the table. "How long?" "Hours. Maybe less." Bradley looks toward the tent opening. Snow blows and along the ground. Cut to a larger headquarters farther south. A stone building surrounded by jeeps, guards, and radio trucks. Inside, Dwight Eisenhower stands with his staff. He listens to overlapping voices, points at a wall map, then raises a hand. "Enough, one at a time." The room quiets. A radio operator turns. General Bradley is requesting an immediate meeting. Eisenhower nods. "Bring him in." Cut back to Bradley exiting his tent. He climbs into a jeep. The engine starts. The vehicle pulls away through the snow-covered road. The jeep stops outside Eisenhower's headquarters. Bradley steps out. He brushes snow from his coat and walks inside. The room is warm, crowded, tense. Eisenhower turns as Bradley enters. "Omar." "Dwight." They shake hands. Brief. Firm. Eisenhower gestures to the map. "We didn't expect this kind of push." Bradley moves closer. He studies the map without speaking. "They're not probing," Bradley says. "They're committed." An officer nearby speaks. "They're using the weather. Our air support is grounded." Bradley nods. "They planned for that." Eisenhower folds his arms. "What do you see?" Bradley reaches out and shifts a marker with 2 fingers. "Our front is bent, not broken," he says. "But some units are holding by habit, not position." Eisenhower watches him closely. "And Bastogne." Bradley taps the map once. "Key road hub. If it goes, movement east and west collapses." Eisenhower looks at the marker longer. "We can reinforce." Bradley shakes his head. "Not fast enough from here." Silence settles in the room. A radio crackles in the background. Eisenhower turns. "What are you bringing me, Omar?" Bradley looks up. Clarity. He steps back from the table. "This isn't a local attack. It's a gamble. They're throwing everything they have left." An officer frowns. "If that's true, stopping them here could end it." Bradley meets his eyes. "If we don't overreact." Eisenhower shifts his weight. "Say that again." Bradley keeps his voice steady. "If we rush units in without coordination, they'll break through gaps we create ourselves." Eisenhower nods slowly. "You're asking for patience in the middle of a crisis." "I'm asking for control." Another explosion echoes faintly outside. Eisenhower turns back to the map. "What do you need?" Bradley answers without pause. "Flexibility. Authority to reposition without waiting for perfect conditions." Eisenhower considers. "And reserves?" "Held. Until we see where the weight really is." Eisenhower exhales. "You're certain?" Bradley looks at the red arrows again. "They're strong where they're loud," he says. "Weak where they're quiet." Eisenhower glances at his staff. He's saying don't chase noise. Bradley nods. "They want us to panic." A messenger enters. "Sir, new report. Enemy armor sighted closer to Bastogne." The room tightens. Eisenhower looks at Bradley. "And if Bastogne is surrounded?" Bradley doesn't hesitate. "Then we hold it. and we prepare to relieve it properly. Eisenhower studies him for a long moment. You're calm. Bradley answers simply, I've seen this before. Different scale. Same mistake. Eisenhower turns back to the map. All right, he says. You'll have the latitude you're asking for. Bradley nods. I'll need cooperation from all commands. You'll have it. Bradley reaches for his helmet. I'll keep you informed. Not fast. Accurate. Eisenhower gives a slight smile. That's what I expect from you. Bradley turns toward the door. As he leaves, Eisenhower watches the map again. The red arrows still push forward, but the blue markers begin to shift not backward, but sideways, creating space instead of collapse. Outside, Bradley steps back into the snow. The wind cuts across the yard. Engines start up nearby. He pauses, looking north. The guns continue. The crisis has begun. Snow keeps falling, heavier now. Roads disappear under fresh layers. Vehicles crawl forward in uneven lines. Drivers lean out of windows, squinting through white haze and exhaust smoke. Bradley rides in the backseat of a command car, a folded map on his knees. The car sways as it moves. Radio chatter fills the space between engine noise and wind. Enemy pressure increasing near St. Vith. Unit strength unclear. Requesting guidance. Bradley listens without interruption. He taps the map once, then again. Reroute the 7th Armored south, he says. They hold the crossroads. The radio operator hesitates. That pulls them off their original sector. Bradley nods. That sector is already gone. The car stops. Bradley steps out near a forward command post. Soldiers move quickly between tents. Artillery fires somewhere beyond the trees. Each blast vibrates through the ground. Inside the post, officers cluster around a small stove. They fall silent as Bradley enters. Sit, Bradley says. They do. He unrolls the map on a crate. We don't plug holes, he says. We bend the line. An officer points. Sir, that exposes his flank. Bradley traces a line with his finger. It exposes ground, not units. Another officer speaks. Our men are tired. Bradley looks at him. So are theirs. A runner enters. Message from Eisenhower. Bradley reads it quickly. He folds the paper and puts it away. He agrees. Bradley says, We hold reserves until they show us where they're empty. The officers exchange glances. Outside, a convoy passes, headlights dimmed. Infantry marches alongside, heads down, rifles tight to their chests. Cut to Eisenhower's headquarters. The atmosphere is louder now. Reports arrive faster. Officers move between tables and radios. Eisenhower listens to a situation update. They're pressing hard near Bastogne. Another voice cuts in. Enemy armor stalled near the north. Eisenhower raises his hand. Which one matters more? Silence. Eisenhower turns to the map. Both, he says, but not for the same reason. He points to the center. If Bastogne holds, they slow themselves. An aide nods. Bradley says the same. Eisenhower looks up. He usually does. Cut back to Bradley moving between positions. He speaks with unit commanders, brief, direct exchanges. Hold until night. Pull back 50 yards, no more. Keep your guns hidden. Each order is precise. No wasted words. Gunfire grows closer. German shells land near the road. Vehicles scatter. Men dive for cover. Bradley crouches beside a ditch as dirt and snow rain down. He waits. When the shelling pauses, he stands and dusts off his coat. Keep moving, he says. Cut to Bastogne. The town is tense but intact. Soldiers reinforce positions, stacking sandbags, clearing firing lanes. A captain looks through binoculars at distant movement. They're closing in. A sergeant checks his ammo. Let them. Cut back to Bradley. A radio operator approaches. Sir, German units bypass one of our strong points. Bradley nods. They're in a hurry. Another report follows immediately. Enemy columns slowed by terrain. Bradley points at the map. That's where we watch. Night falls early. Fires glow along the horizon. The sound of engines and artillery merges into a constant rumble. Bradley returns to a larger headquarters. He stands beside Eisenhower again. Both look tired now. They're deeper than expected. Eisenhower says, "Yes," Bradley replies. "And narrower." Eisenhower turns. "You're still confident?" Bradley meets his eyes. "They can't sustain this." Eisenhower looks back at the map. Patton is asking to turn north. Bradley considers for a moment. "He's the right man for it," he says. "But not yet." Eisenhower nods. "We wait." Outside, a strong wind sweeps across the yard. Snow swirls under the lights. Inside, another report arrives. Enemy supply column spotted. Lightly guarded. Bradley looks up. "That's what they're spending," he says. Eisenhower watches him. "And when they're empty?" Bradley answers quietly. "Then we move." The radios continue. The map changes shape as markers shift again. The line bends but does not break. Far north, German forces push forward, unaware of the space closing behind them. Bradley steps away from the table and looks out a window. Snow presses against the glass. Somewhere beyond it, men are holding ground 1 yard at a time. He turns back. "Keep pressure off the center," he says. "Let them believe it's working." The officers nod and move. The crisis deepens, but the response remains measured. The storm continues. Night settles fully over the Ardennes. Snow absorbs sound. The battlefield feels wider and emptier, even as movement increases everywhere at once. Headlights blink on and off beneath blackout covers. Columns pause, turn, then move again. Bradley stands alone outside a command post. Coat pulled tight, helmet low. He watches a line of trucks disappear into the dark forest road. No speeches, no gestures, just motion. Inside, the maps are updated again. The front line no longer looks like a wall. It looks like a curve under pressure. Bent, stretched, still connected. Bradley studies it without urgency. He marks new positions slowly, deliberately. A reserve division shifts sideways instead of forward. Artillery is pulled back 10 miles, not a retreat, but to widen its arc supply routes are shortened, tightened. German pressure increases where expected. Tanks push deeper. Infantry follows the roads instead of the forests. They move fast, confident the gap will widen. Bradley lets it. Reports arrive in sequence. Breakthroughs, then pauses, then delays. The rhythm changes. At Eisenhower's headquarters, the room feels different now. Still tense but focused. Fewer voices. Longer silences between updates. Officers stand closer to the maps instead of the radios. Bradley arrives again, snow on his shoulders. He doesn't rush to speak. He looks first. The German advance has shape now. Direction. Wait. Eisenhower watches him. Bradley points once. Not dramatic. Precise. The enemy push narrows. The roads choke. Fuel slows them. Artillery lags behind armor. Infantry stretches thin. The gamble is visible now. Bradley steps back. The response begins to shift. Orders move outward instead of inward. Units that were holding are told to pivot, not to attack, to position. Airfields farther south begin preparing despite the weather. Crews wait for a break in clouds. Engines are warmed. Bombs are loaded. At Bastogne, the perimeter tightens. The town shrinks inward but hardens. Firing lanes overlap. Roads are blocked intentionally. Every street becomes a delay. German units circle, but don't crush it. They expect collapse. It doesn't come. Bradley watches this from miles away, reading it through symbols and timing. He sends one short directive. Hold. Adjust. Wait. Patton's name appears again in reports. His forces shift. Not yet north. Not yet unleashed. Bradley delays it by hours, then more. He watches the enemy burn time instead. The weather begins to change. Clouds thin. Wind shifts. The snow eases. Bradley notices before anyone tells him. He steps outside and looks up. A patch of lighter sky opens briefly, then closes again. Enough. The next orders move faster now. Air support prepares. Recon flights test the gaps. German supply columns are identified, exposed on narrow roads. The first strikes come at dawn. Not massive, precise. Fuel trucks burn. Bridges disappear. Roads clog with wreckage. The enemy advance slows, then stalls. At Eisenhower's headquarters, the map finally stops bending. Bradley stands with his hands behind his back. He doesn't smile. He doesn't speak much. He watches the pattern reverse. Now the red arrows hesitate. Now the silence belongs to the other side. Eisenhower glances at Bradley. This is the moment. Bradley nods. Now, orders move out. Pattern turns. Other units push inward, not recklessly, coordinated, timed. The crisis shift direction. Bradley steps away from the table again. Outside, engines grow louder. Columns move with purpose now, not reaction. The warning he brought days earlier has done its work. Not by stopping the blow, by letting it land where it could be held. The turning point is not loud. It doesn't announce itself. It simply arrives. Morning breaks clean for the first time in days. The sky opens in pale blue gaps. Sunlight touches the snow without warmth. Engines roar across the Ardennes as aircraft rise from airfields that have been silent. Fighters cut through the clouds. Bombers follow in tight formation. Below them, narrow roads twist through forests and hills, crowded with enemy columns that no longer move freely. The first bombs fall on supply routes. Fuel trucks erupt into fire. Ammunition loads scatter across the snow. Bridges vanish in smoke and debris. The sound rolls across the valleys, constant and overwhelming. On the ground, German armor halts. Crews scramble. Infantry pulls back into the woods. Momentum drains away. Bradley stands at a forward command post, listening to reports coming one by one. No rush. No interruption. The pattern is clear now. Enemy advance stalled. Fuel shortages confirmed. Air strikes effective. He steps outside as aircraft streak overhead. He watches until they disappear beyond the tree line. The counterstroke begins. Patton's columns turn north. Tanks move fast, not into open space, but into weakened joints. Infantry follows tight behind. Artillery fires in sequence, walking fire across roads and ridges. The movement is synchronized. No wasted motion. At Bastogne, engines are heard again. Louder, closer. American armor pushes through the outer ring. The perimeter opens. Roads reconnect. The town exhales. Inside Eisenhower's headquarters, the map changes rapidly now. Blue markers push inward from multiple directions. Red markers retreat, scatter, vanish. Eisenhower stands silent, arms crossed, eyes fixed. Bradley watches the same movement without leaning in. The crisis has passed its peak. What remains is execution. Enemy units attempt to regroup. They don't find time. Air strikes return. Artillery keeps pressure constant. Roads become traps instead of routes. Snow covers abandoned equipment. Wreckage marks where speed once lived. Bradley moves between command posts again. He checks timing, spacing, coordination. He adjusts nothing unless necessary. The structure holds. Report slow, then thin. Enemy withdrawal confirmed. Prisoners taken. Advance reversed. Bradley pauses beside a map table. He looks at Bastogne. No longer encircled. No longer isolated. Just another point connected to the whole. Outside, the sound of battle fades into distance. Not gone. Controlled. Eisenhower joins him. They stand side by side, watching the final reports arrive. The gamble is over. The warning held. The Ardennes no longer bends. The snow settles again, quieter now. The roads are open. Convoys move in steady lines, not rushed, not stalled. Supply trucks pass through towns that days earlier have been cut off from everything but radio static and artillery fire. Bradley stands near a roadside command post, watching men move with purpose instead of urgency. Engineers clear debris. Medics load the wounded. Units rotate forward and back in order. No cheers. No speeches. Just work. He walks inside and studies the final situation map. The red arrows are gone. In their place are thin, retreating lines, uneven and broken. The blue markers form a connected front again. Eisenhower arrives shortly after. He removes his gloves and sets them on the table. They spent everything, he says. Bradley nods. They had to, he replies. They stand in silence for a moment. Eisenhower looks at the map again. You didn't bring me certainty, he says. You brought restraint. Bradley answers without looking up. Certainty doesn't survive first contact. Outside, aircraft pass overhead, heading east. The sound fades quickly. Eisenhower turns. When this is written, he says, they'll talk about weather, armor, speed. Bradley folds the map. They always do. And what will they miss? Bradley pauses. The space between panic and action. Eisenhower nods. That space saved us. Bradley steps toward the doorway. Cold air moves in again. He looks out across the cleared road, the forest beyond it, the ground that it held. He doesn't linger. The war is not over. The next decisions are already waiting. He walks back to the vehicles. Engines start. Orders move forward again, calm, measured. Behind him, the Ardennes stands quiet, marked by tracks, smoke, and silence. The crisis has passed. What remains is momentum, guided instead of chased. Bradley takes a seat, the door closes, and the convoy moves on. The warning he carried did not stop the storm. It taught them where to stand.